In the beginning, Edith Carter, a former teacher and lover of history, just wanted to save a one-room schoolhouse in Ferguson, North Carolina, called Whippoorwill Academy.
Whippoorwill Academy was built in 1880 over about a mile from here on the Beaver Creek Road, and it was built back up in the woods, and my husband's great-grandfather didn't like where it was going to be built, and he made a very sarcastic remark, "It's so far back in the woods, not even the whippoorwills can find it." And that name stuck, and has been called Whippoorwill Academy ever since.
The building had fallen into disrepair when Edith approached the owner about buying the historic landmark to restore.
And he shook his head. He said, "No, I would never sell it, but I will give it to you."
The schoolhouse became the first building ever given to or purchased by Edith, and either dismantled and rebuilt or moved to the cow pasture outside of her home in Ferguson.
And then it just started rolling along, and first one building after another became available, and I thought, this one needs to be saved too. So that was the reason that we now have 11 buildings here.
Before she knew it, Mrs. Carter had reconstructed an entire 18th and 19th century town she calls Whippoorwill Academy and Village, complete with jailhouse.
That's the best. Where we got to get locked in.
Even a replica of Daniel Boone's cabin.
The logs from that old cabin are not actually from Daniel Boone's cabin, but I do have the rocks from his original chimney. Daniel Boone lived here in this community in the 1760s, lived here for about 12 years, and he had two cabins, one on the Beaver Creek, which when he found it flooded there, he moved across the Yadkin River and built up on higher ground. So this little cabin is built to the exact size of a cabin that he did have on Beaver Creek. And he lived there with his wife and 8 children, and occasionally 2 orphan nephews came to live with him.
I don't see how they'd all fit in there. I thought it was pretty cool.
Tom Dooley was another infamous character who lived about a mile away, so Edith constructed a museum at the village in his honor.
He was born and reared here in the community and buried just about a mile and a half from here. And it houses my paintings that I did telling the story of Tom Dooley, along with his original tombstone, some of Laura Foster's hair, and a lot of other memorabilia.
There's also a visitor center, blacksmith shop, gift shop, art gallery, wash house, even a couple of outhouses. But the one structure that made the village complete was a chapel Edith converted from a 2-story log cabin.
It's about 200 years old. It was found over on the Brushy Mountains here in Wilkes County. One of the best buildings we've ever found. And so I wanted a little chapel here on the grounds because I had a jailhouse and I had a store and a school, so I thought to make it a little more complete we would have a little chapel. And so we made it into the Chapel of Peace, dedicated to my mother, who was a wonderful lady of peace. And we have had 51 weddings there so far. And sometimes they're great big weddings and sometimes they're not. But the bell came from an old Methodist church that we tore down years ago here in the community, and also the pulpit. Then everybody would shout amen. Amen!
It didn't take long to discover Edith wasn't the only person in the area who enjoyed exploring the old buildings.
It's an inspiration. The old school there is the old Hammer School. And it was just like it was back in the olden days, one-room school.
I like the fact that places like this exist, that there are people who are dedicated to getting old buildings and putting them up in locations where the kids can come and take a look at what our history really was.
And it's those kids that Edith is most concerned about reaching, which is why Whippoorwill has become such a popular field trip for a whole new generation of history buffs.
They just need to touch the past and to realize what an opportunity they have now because of the efforts and sacrifices that people made back in the early days of America. They need to know this, and they need to carry it with them.